Thanks for joining us today or tonight, depending on where in the world you are. If you are here, make sure you pop in the comments, say hi, and let us know where you're watching from. I am so excited today for our author, who is Rachel Spangler, and today we're going to be discussing her writing, specifically her incredible book, Full English. So please welcome Rachel. Hi, Rachel. How are
Hi,
you?
everyone.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited being able to talk to you and just rack your brain about this absolutely beautiful book.
Oh, thank you
Um,
for having me.
I, I loved it, and as I was saying to Rachel earlier, this is actually the first book of hers that I've read, and now I can't wait to read the rest. It's I was totally blown away by it. But if, in your own words, could you just give us a quick kind of blurb about what Full English is?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. Like, I'll come talk to you whenever you want if you just say nice things like that. So Full English is the story. I just totally blanked on their names. Emma and Brogan. Um, and Emma is a somewhat famous author who has just gone through a humiliating and somewhat public divorce. And she's an introvert, so any public is hard for her, but especially public humiliation. So she has fled to her grandmother's ancestral home, a little village in the northeast of England that she has never been to before, and she knows no one, and she wants it to stay that way. She just wants to become a hermit and nurse her wounds. Unfortunately, the town is full of busybodies, and they're not going to let this happen. They are very, very excited to have any new resident, but especially a famous artist in their midst. And so they set about scheming ways to integrate her into the community. And one of the things that they decide they must do is to fix her up with the only other lesbian in town. And so Brogan is a lifetime resident, sort of a jack of all trades, wonderful, good, kind-hearted sort, but does not want to be part of this poor woman's trauma, and definitely resists for a while. But as time goes on, you get to see that they do have a lot more in common than the villagers even realized, because they were mostly just looking for two lesbians. But that's where the story it starts, and it develops from there.
Yeah, it was so funny. I burst out laughing to the point where the dog kind of went, "What the hell?" There's one line in it where you specifically say, "But you're the only lesbian in the village," and I cracked up laughing because I thought that is just fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Amberwick. That's right. Am I actually getting that
Yeah.
right? Amberwick.
Yeah.
Is that actually a real town or based on a real town?
So it is based very much on the town that I lived in England. The town I lived in is Allenmouth. And a nearby town is Annick. So I was kind of playing with sounds from that region and smushed them together, because there's a character in the book that's the daughter of a duke, and
Yeah.
there's an actual duke in that area, and he has a very good looking daughter. And so I didn't want to run into any sort of legal challenges. I didn't want to be messing with a real dukedom, because they don't like that. So I did give it a fake name, but basically everything else, from the layout of the village to the pub that they go to. I gave the estuary a bigger dock that you could launch boats from, but other than that, there is an estuary that's full of sailboats.
Wow.
So if you go Google Allenmouth, so Almouth, that's what the characteristics are all based off of.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
Yeah.
But did you actually do like obviously you said you lived there, but did
Mhm.
you go back again while you were writing this, or
Yeah, I
was it
actually
all
wrote it
from memory?
I wrote it almost all of it while I was living there.
Oh,
This
cool.
was this was my project. I was over there. Kelly Smith, who founded Bywater Books, who published the book, lives there, and I actually lived in a house that she owns. So it was nice. I was working with her. I was learning the publishing business and writing this book set there, and zipping around the country. I learned how to drive on the left side of the road, and it was just this glorious 8 months. And we actually, in the book, they go to the pub on Friday nights, and that's
Yep.
something that we did. So, like, after the book was published, we went back to visit, and I took a picture of the Friday Club and, all sitting in their corner booth. And I posted it on Facebook. And then, like, 15 minutes later, one of the guys had, like, gotten on my Facebook and posted, like, the address and the name of the pub and where they were, and, like, come join them. And I was like, you just proved the whole point of the book.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's so fantastic. I love that. We have had a few people come say hi, Clancy. And we have another Facebook user, which I've just checked. That's actually Jacinta. Hi, Jacinta. Thanks for joining us, guys. Um, I love that. I'm such a sucker for small town stories. So I just find them beautiful. And the way you've described it, it's it's not just the town's beauty. I love how you've also interwoven, like, specifically about the sea, into, they talk about pirate characters in different situations, and the way you use sea sort of language to describe other things. It's just so beautiful, these threads that you've put through.
Thank you.
I'm sure there's a question in there somewhere. Oh, there is. So, because yeah, it runs through this whole book. But are you someone who loves the water? Like, are you quite pulled into the water?
Yeah, I am. So we always say I'm like Moana. I'm descended from Voyagers. Um, so
I
my
love that.
my ancestors were seafarers. I would just totally be a nerd right now and
Oh,
tell you that um, my ancestors, like my 12th great grandfather, was a sea explorer, and so
wow.
he was looking to get to China through a northern route, but he found Russia at a time when England didn't know that Russia was there. They thought Russia was this tiny country on the Black Sea, and then they got all the way up around the Scandinavian countries, and they're like, "Oh, whoa, this country's way bigger than we thought." Um, and so then his sons were seafarers, and their sons were seafarers, and so until eventually the family came to America. Very early on, they were at Jamestown, and so then we moved west and we got sort of landlocked. But I always like to think that there's something in the bloodline that draws me to that. I grew up in Florida I lived in Florida for 13 years, and I always hated the beach, but I always loved to be on the
Oh.
boats. So
Ah, wow.
finally living in England, I my conservatory overlooked the North Sea, and I just always thought that that's where my grandfathers sailed. Like, that was where they went, and I had a connection to it. So that's where.
I love that. That's
So
just
when
so brilliant.
yeah, when Emma talks about her grandmother and feeling this connection to this place, that very much
Yeah.
stems from my connection to that heritage.
That's so fantastic. I love that. And you can absolutely see that. Like, there's so much love and passion and beauty in relation to it. So I'm not surprised that you do have the connection, but I love that you have such an intense connection.
Yeah.
Not nerding at all. That's just writer awesomeness. So that is really, really cool. And how did full English actually come? Like, do you write? Okay, sorry, completely getting all so excited here. Are you more of a planner or a discovery writer?
Yeah, I'm a totally discovery writer. I'm a fly by the seat of your pants. I pretty much, I almost always hear a conversation first. I'm not even a
Oh,
visual writer. I'm an auditory person. So I never start a book until I hear their voices. So I can hear them begin to play off of each other. And so I knew I found Brogan first. Brogan sounded, just really kind, but also a little brusque to me. I pictured kind of this working class, not quite all the way to butch, but, leaning to masculine of center. And, in this village, I very much saw that pub setting. And then Emma sort of came slower. But I had really a good sense of some of the things. Like I could picture them learning to drive. I could picture the sort of village folks trying to pull her out. I could hear those conversations, and so I started writing. I had no idea how it was going to end until I generally, happily, I write romances. I know they'll figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
But I didn't know much about the ending until I was about 2/3 of the way through the book.
That's just awesome. I love that. Because I'm 100% the same. I have no idea. But I love that you start with the banter, because to me that's like one of the best things about reading is hearing those voices and those characters, and it was just phenomenal. So as a writer as well, I love there's so many things in this book that go into the whole writing process, of course, because Emma is a writer. And I have to ask, so there's one point where Emma is talking about her ex, who is it Amalie?
Amelia, I believe.
Amelia.
Oh no, Amelie. You're right. It's Amelie.
Yeah.
Sometimes characters' names get changed while I'm writing the book. You're right. Amelie is what we went with at the end. Yes.
No, that's cool. And how Emma was talking about how Amalie would get annoyed pretty much about everything, but would get annoyed about her going off in her writing fancy thoughts, and how she would prefer the technical side. Where do you sit on that line, or are you kind of a bit of both? Or
No, I'm definitely the creative. My wife has had to learn. I'm a terrible eavesdropper. I like when we're out at a restaurant, every now and then she'll say something. I'm like, "What?" And she'll be like, "What's happening at the table next to us?" And I was like, "I think they're breaking up," So like, I'm definitely an eavesdropper. But I always say that I have a bit of like oppositional defiance disorder that only presents in creativity. So like whenever someone tells me, "Oh, well, you could never do X in a story," or "that would never work," I immediately try and think of like, gotta be some way. My wife recently said, "Well, you couldn't write a new take on a therapist story because that's been done to death." And then I was like, I think I did. I think I just did in my head. Like, I think I just thought of way, like anytime, but then I'm gone, right? Then I'm gone for a few minutes. I left the room in my brain. And that's, definitely, it could happen at any moment.
So it's kind of challenge accepted. Anytime someone says so, yeah. I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We have Jacinta as well, just popping in and saying, I always love hearing the different process of writing, which thank you. And it's so fantastic hearing just how you came to it and your process altogether as well. I absolutely love that. Where was I? Sorry. I was just wondering as well. Oh, there's so many things in this book. Like I'm not knowing if you're caring about spoiling people or not. But
the book's been out for a couple years, so I feel like
cool. Spoilers, people.
Spoiler alert.
Because I absolutely loved it, and I was actually curious as I was reading, like near the end. I was like, oh, I wonder if it's not actually happy ever after, or it's more a happy for now sort of thing. Because it's, I remember when I was reading it for a little bit, I was like, oh, I really don't like this idea that Emma will fall for Broganson because she's the only one there. Like she's had this rebound, and they actually discuss that. And I love how you approach that. And I love that Victoria's in there, so it is that sort of, it's not because she's the only gay in the village, like it's so much more. And then when Emma stands up for herself, it's just, well, it was heartbreaking. That scene just like, oh, the feels killed me, because I'm like, but you don't understand, poor Brogan, you don't get it. And I was like, how do you come back from this? So it was fantastic on that. But yeah, I love how you actually didn't let that sort of be kind of under there and not brought up and mentioned and addressed and all that kind of thing, because things like that do happen and it breaks people. And I love the realistic nature of your characters. They're just so beautiful.
Thank you. And yeah, Vic was so perfect to deal, because I wanted to deal with exactly that, because like Brogan needed to know that she was chosen in a full field, because Brogan has been, sort of the vacation fling for so many women, that you're not Ms. Right, you just happen to be right here. And
yes.
that is the thing that we couldn't let happen. We couldn't let Brogan go on thinking that it was just you're good enough. It had to be you're amazing. There's this, heiress with a castle and a gorgeous body and blonde hair and, chic clothing and all of the things right here at the table, and I'm still choosing you.
Yes. And I love that it was like, yes, they're so similar. That doesn't necessarily mean they'd be good together. They'd be great friends, but just because she, from the outside looking in, technically fits in that world, I love that that's not what it was. It was nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
And Reggie is one of, sorry, yeah.
Go ahead. Nope. Go ahead, finish.
Reggie is one of my favorite characters too. I just love her. She's just.
But I've got to tell you, there's a sequel, where there's a spinoff, right, that follows Victoria. So Victoria,
modern English.
Yep. So
I was gonna ask about that, because I was like, is that related?
Yes, because people loved Victoria so much. They were like, she is perfect and she is fun. And this is what I always tell people. It's so important. A lot of readers don't realize how much they can build up an author or sway them in a certain way.
Yes.
I said, well, if more than half of the reviews mention Victoria, I'll try and write her story next. And it ended up being about 90% of the reviews mentioned her. And I took that to heart. I really did. And so I sat down and I gave her own romance. And it's someone that challenges her much more than Emma would have, because I think she needs that in her life. I think she didn't need someone who was too similar to her. She needed someone who could. But I have to tell you now, you'll be one of the first publicity I've done on this. I've written a third book. It is titled Plain English, and I hope it will be out this spring. It follows two characters that you haven't seen. It's one of Victoria's cousins, and Diane from Friday Club's granddaughter has moved to the village. But you get to see Reg a lot, and she's growing up.
Yeah. Yay!
So she's a full secondary side character in this. She plays a big role. She's 16, almost 17. So we're getting to see her develop as a person now.
Oh, I am so excited. Oh, that totally, yay! That's just totally made my day, because she's just, for anyone who hasn't read this book, Reg is just this kick-ass character. She's Brogan's sister's child.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she's just so fantastic and so well rounded, and that's what I love. Like, all the characters, you could see them. You could see all the side characters and how they'd interact, and it just, some of the pub conversations, I'm just like, oh my God, I feel like I've heard this conversation before, or I've seen it, and it just has such that brilliant small town busybody, but never like they don't mean to be nasty. They
Mhm.
just they're insulated a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big confrontation scene that kicked me, because I was like, Emma's just sitting there watching it, and I'm like, dude, you have to speak. No, like, from everything about her, she's not the type to speak up. And I'm like, oh God, please don't just stand there and listen to this shit. Like, and the way she did it, and it was so adorable. After she runs off, and I'm just laughing my ass off, because it was just so her. Like, I'm gonna do it. Holy shit, that was terrifying. I'm going. Like, I can't deal with it. And it was just so beautifully, perfectly her, that I just loved it. So on a personal note, were you a reader as a kid?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
huge reader. I always had my nose in a book. I was definitely the kid who got in trouble for reading in math class. Like I always had a book, even in college. Like once I got in trouble in college where like you're not supposed to get in trouble anymore, like
Yeah.
one of my professors was like, Spangler, put the novel away. And I was like, damn it. Yeah. So like I loved to read, and now I have a son who's the same way. He like shattered the reading record at his elementary school a few years ago, and I keep like coming in and finding the book, his nightlight on in the book on his chest, and he's falling asleep. And I'm like, I can't even get on him for that. At one point I was like, Jax, put the book away. And then I was like, never mind, leave it out. It's fine. You're fine.
Oh, that is so cool. I love that. And what kind of books did you read as a child? Just anything you could get your hands on, or
Yeah,
did you lean toward specific things?
I liked realistic fiction. I always leaned towards things that I really felt like I could know the characters. With the exception of C.S. Lewis. I loved all the Narnia books. Just absolute love with the Narnia books. When we were living in England, we actually went across to Belfast, and they have a park of C.S. Lewis's like characters.
Oh,
They're
cool.
like statues and things, and I like there's a picture of me hugging the statue of Mr. Tumnus, and then like my wife got a picture of me standing at the stone table crying. Like I was just like crying and crying. And so that was definitely a big one. But I loved the Super Fudge books. I loved all of like Judy Blume and Beverly Cleary. And then when I got a little older, I had this beat up copy of The Outsiders that would fit in my back pocket, like some little baby butch that would carry around my novel about the boy gang and like dream about being Ponyboy Curtis. Like I was totally in these worlds.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. That's fantastic. And do you get to still read a lot now?
I do, but it's different now. I'm editing for a couple young authors. I edit for Jen Alexander and Anna Burke, both of whom I'm so proud of their success in recent years. So right now, when they're like, "What have you read for the last month?" I'm like, Jen Alexander's new book, and they're like, "What else?" I'm like, "No, I've just read that 4 times." Because it's so good. You guys just get a chance, definitely check her. I don't know when it'll be out, probably in the spring. It's called Live It Out, but it's the start of a new series about a lesbian punk rock band. It's fantastic.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. That answers my question, because I was just about to ask what's the latest book you've enjoyed that you can recommend, but there we go.
And also, I don't know if you've read, Anna Burke started the Seal Cove series. So I've been editing.
They're on my list.
I've been editing those too. I was really up to my elbows in those for a while. But I will say we read a lot as a family. So I'm getting like this second childhood, and this time I'm a boy. And it's fantastic because my son keeps bringing books to me. And I always try and read if he's really, really wants me to read a book. Although I'm convinced he might be like a miniature psychopath because he likes all this dystopian stuff. He likes all this like dark dystopian. I mean, he made me read the Scythe books, which are terrifying. Oh my god. I was having nightmares about Scythe, but I also couldn't put it down. So he's got good taste because I was like, there's no way I would have read this book unless it was fantastically written.
Yeah. That's so cool. So
Yeah.
so you're not really into the more speculative fiction or scary
Not
books?
usually. I frighten very easily. I do not. I'm like someone. So I'm definitely a very empathic person. I take in other people's emotions, and so if we're reading like terrifying books, then I am also legitimately terrified.
Oh no.
And I don't find that entertaining. I really, if I were to read on my own, it would be all romances all the time.
Yeah. That's hilarious that he's fully into the complete opposite then. I find that really interesting.
He's funny because he was talking his English teacher, like all last year they were reading dystopians and she and him were just like they meshed really well. And so he was like, yeah, my English teacher was like, I don't know why I've just gotten into dystopians the last couple years. And my son was like, it's because we're living in one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not really speculative fiction anymore. It's
No.
Yeah. It's pretty real.
Yeah. But no, if I were left to my own device, like when I joined the Facebook group, there was that question about your favorite authors, and I was like, this is terrifying. I don't know. I'm really, really close friends with Georgia Beers and Melissa Braden. We talk pretty regularly. So I always try and read what they're reading. I'm always like 2 books behind because they put out books quickly. But I do really like the people who are writing classic contemporary romances.
That's so cool. And are you working on anything at the moment?
Yeah, so I just got my edits back on Plain English, which I told you about. So I'm editing that right now. That's also my first genderqueer character. So I've got a genderqueer main character. So that was a very big deal for me, a little bit of therapy for myself. And then we are, let's see, what do I have next? Oh, I'm working on a book called Heartstrings. Which is kind of crushing me right now because I'm in that middle third that always gets rough. It is a standalone contemporary romance, real sweet. A type A financial planner gets left her nephew. Her sister flies off to Belize and leaves her 12-year-old nephew with her, and she's freaking out. And she takes him to his violin lesson where she meets his adorable, free-spirited violin teacher. And so the two of them bond over their love for this boy and the sort of ways their life has been completely disrupted.
I love that. That is so cool. Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. And where's the best place for people to, I keep saying stalk, but that's probably a really bad way to put it, to follow you on social media?
Yeah, so like I'm definitely on Facebook a lot, probably more than is healthy. But I've been getting spammed there a lot lately. So if you send me a friend request and we don't have a lot of friends in common, also send me a message saying, hey, I'm a reader. Because some of it, like the Russian bots have gone like nuts over there. So if you want to follow me without like having to wait for me to verify you're a real person, Instagram is fantastic. You will get lots and lots of pictures of me just being a person there. Like,
yay.
I have a paddleboard. Like, you'll get lots of pictures of my paddleboard. I'm leaving for New York City tomorrow, so you'll probably get lots of New York City pictures. And then I'm on Twitter, but I'm not good at it because people on Twitter can be really mean, and I try and stay away. Like, there's enough meanness in the world. I don't need to sign up for that. And then finally, I do have Patreon. So if you want to see sort of like little snips of what I'm working on, sometimes random things. Like I just did a post about, sort of my evolution as an editor now that I'm doing more editing. I have some video. I do a video question and answer. I'm going to do another one in a couple weeks. So if you're into that, join Patreon. It is pay because I put out things there that I want to make sure it's only people who really are here. It's my supportive space. It's my place where I know only people who care about me as a person and as an artist. But because I also don't want to be a classist asshole, I've set my entry level at $2. So like you don't.
That's fantastic.
I know that people are. It's hard. Times are hard. We're in a global pandemic, so if you can pony up $2 a month, you get access to almost all of it. If you go up to the $20 a month, you get the free ebooks and things too. But as far as like seeing what I'm working on and getting updates, that's all at the $2 level.
Oh, that's fantastic. Do you have a link for that on your website?
Probably not, because my website is a massive cluster, right? I actually, we're migrating my website. It's probably about 2 or 3 weeks away from a new website launch. I'm working with an awesome person who has a queer daughter. I met them at a party in North Carolina, and like the kid has just come out as queer and taken on a chosen name that is so awesome. And I'm like, you're the parent of that person? Yes, I would like to work together, because if you can that amazing child, I definitely want you to do my website. So I basically hired her on the spot. And
wow.
I have not regretted it at all. She's doing a great job. But yeah, it's Patreon, I believe, Rachel Spangler.
Fantastic. I will chase that down and I'll put it in the comments when I put all this up, so that we can definitely push that. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Oh, I just wanna rave about this book for like another 3 hours. Like honestly, it made me just. The thing about it is, it starts and I think, okay, yeah, I thought, yep, nice, fluffy, happy romance, and it's so much deeper than that. And I loved that. I loved that there was these complicated emotions and personalities, and I loved the theme. And I wanted to ask whether this was intentional or if it was just something that organically came out about this whole. There's actually a quote that one of the characters says to one of the kids, and it says, "You can be both, Ginny. Good girl and tough girl aren't opposites. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise." And I feel like that was a major theme in the book, that you don't have to be one or the other. And yeah, was that a theme that you intentionally did, or was just pulled out?
I think it's a theme in a lot of my work. I identify as non-binary. I think I'm bucking up against binaries all the time in my life. I think that's something you'll see a lot in my work, is that a lot of the times I like to take two characters that have similar issues, but have pushed it, that same issue has pushed them in different directions. So with Brogan and Emma, it's a lot around self-worth, and what it means to be valid and to be worthy, not just of being cared for, but being seen as a whole person. All of these pieces are valid. Your heartbreak is valid. Your sex appeal is valid. And these two things are not mutually exclusive with any of your other characteristics. So I think that's a theme that I come back to a lot in my work, is that people may be facing the same situation or the same sort of root problem, but it's manifesting itself as two different ends of the spectrum, and you have to work back towards the middle.
I love that. I honestly cannot wait to read more of your books, especially knowing that they break that binary concept of one or the other, because it's everywhere and it's frustrating.
Yeah, it is, and it's where my son is 13, So kids that are like a year or two older than him are coming out now, like they're reaching that sort of age of awareness. And it's amazing to me how many of his circle of friends have come out as bisexual. And I'm just like so in love, with this idea that, maybe I'll settle with a boy, maybe I'll settle with a girl, maybe I'll settle with someone in between. But this refusal to be pinned down at 14, like that's something else that comes up a lot in my book, is how things early in our life set us on a path and how hard it is to jump off of that path when you're older.
Yes.
Particularly my Darlington books, it's 3 books that all take place in the same small town. And I think small towns are often really ripe for like everyone knew you when you were a kid and they expect you to just grow along that same path, and how hard it is to break the mold when we make these decisions. I've got another one called Love All. There's a character, she's 17. She's a 17-year-old professional tennis player, and people don't like her. And you're not supposed to, quite frankly, spoiler alert, because she's a 17-year-old millionaire who keeps getting microphones shoved in her face. How can you not be an asshole at that point? And so the point that I was hoping to make is that I don't want to be remembered for who I was at 17. I hope to God I evolve past who I was at 17. But so many times our society wants to just nail us into this path, and it's not healthy.
Oh, sorry, I could just listen to you talk about this all day, because I completely agree. It's just, man, I look back on when I was 17, I was like, oh gosh, no.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine being 17, having $1 million and a microphone? Like, how could you not? How could you not say something horrendous?
Yeah, like, geez, that would be tough.
Yeah.
No thanks. I'm good. Oh, thank you again so much for joining us. I've absolutely loved chatting to you about this book. And like I said, I can't wait to read more. Anyone who hasn't read Full English, go read it. It's so beautiful. It's poetic and rhythmic, and it's just lovely. So yeah, thank you again, and thanks everyone, and we will catch you later.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.